Hey there, everyone. Welcome to A Slice of Life with Kellie and Jon. And today we have a special guest, Carrie Mitchum, who is the granddaughter of the famous actor Robert Mitchum. And she has her own acting credits and her own claim to fame and fabulous career. And I just have so many questions I can't wait to start asking. I'm very excited to meet you, Carrie, and get a chance to chat with you. So welcome to A Slice of Life.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
Yay. Thanks for joining us. So my first question is, when in reading your biography, and I remember you, but I didn't know it was you, Carrie Mitchum of The Bold and the Beautiful, because I watched The Bold and Beautiful from day one.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a longtime fan. I don't watch it anymore, but I watched it forever, and was a big fan. So I was excited that one of my heroes from The Bold and the Beautiful I get to chat with. So how was that experience in the soap world? How long were you on Bold and Beautiful?
I was on it for 4 years, and then I came back a couple times after I left to do weddings as a guest. And it was my first real starring role. I had been in some of my dad's and some of my granddad's films as like an extra. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. But this was my first real role. And so for the first, I would say 2 years, it was great because it was a constant learning experience. And after about 2 years, I think that playing the same character wore a little thin, and it became too much like a 9-to-5 job. I grew up on movie sets, not TV sets. And so I really loved the camaraderie and everything of being on location and on a movie set. And that was what I thought acting was all about. And so being on a TV show is a completely different entity. I think it's great for people that have families because they have predictability and they have their consistency in work, but they have their time off. They go home every night. I think for a 21-year-old, I probably would have enjoyed being on location and on movie sets a little more.
Yeah, I think it's a little more exciting, huh, to be on a movie set and whatever. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask a question I was just thinking about, and I don't mean to get it because soap operas was never my thing. So I'll just move out of that. What was or what is your earliest recollection of your grandfather and your last recollection of your grandfather?
Okay, so those are both pretty easy. Earliest recollection would be their house in Bel Air. My grandparents had a house in Bel Air on St. Pierre. And when I was probably 16 or 17 months old, we came back because my brother was born. He was born in Tucson, and we came back to visit the family in Los Angeles. And I remember being aware for the first time that I was sharing attention and not necessarily liking that. And B, both my grandfathers, my maternal and paternal grandfather, spent much more time with me than with my little brother, and thinking, ha, I am special. And obviously it was because he was this little baby in diapers and I was this fun, active toddler. And so I was much more entertaining. But in my narcissistic little world, as toddlers are, I thought it was because I was much more interesting than my brother.
That's cute. That's funny.
So that was my first real memory. I know that I was exposed to my grandparents prior to that, but I think that was when I was aware that these people were someone special in my life and I was someone special in theirs. And then my last memory of my grandfather was 2 weeks before he died. I went up there because it was both my birthday and Father's Day. And I brought him a Baccarat crystal bull because I told him he
Mhm.
was a bull in a china shop, and he laughed. And it was actually a really nice visit. He was on oxygen, but he'd been on oxygen for a while. And
How
I
old, how old was he? Do you remember?
he died on July 1st of 97, and he would have been 80 on August 6th.
Wow.
So he was almost 80, but he, was a lifelong cigarette smoker, Pall Mall unfiltered.
Oh.
And he was also a lifelong marijuana smoker. And I think the combination of just like bombarding his lungs on a daily basis, he had both emphysema and lung cancer. And I don't think I was aware of how sick he was, because that my birthday is June 15th. So he was dead 2 weeks later.
How old were you when he passed away? Do you any idea on that?
Yeah, sure. The last time I saw him was my 32nd birthday.
Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, his last movie was one of my favorites when he was in Scrooge with Bill Murray. Is that?
Yes. That was not his last movie. Scrooged he did in, I believe, summer of 87. So he did several movies after Scrooged, but that was a very fun movie. I had just started doing The Bold and the Beautiful, and they were shooting on the Paramount lot. So I was able to go over there during my lunch break and hang out. And my favorite scene was when he was in his study with all the cats, because they had the whole set up, and then the fourth wall was chicken wire in order to wrangle the cats, and keep all the cats in. And I just thought it was so fun to see my grandfather in a cage with all these cats.
That's cute. Well, growing up, when did you realize that your family is like not just special because you love them, but they're special to everyone, because your whole family, you have a lot of actors in your family.
A lot.
And when did you figure out that that was not normal? Special?
And it's funny because my mom's side of the family was in show business as well. My great uncle is Harold Lloyd, who was a silent film star, as my mom's uncle.
Wow.
And we used to actually go to his house a lot when I was really little as well. And there was always like people, he was into photography by the time I was like a toddler, and he was much older. So there was always show business people there. There was always show business people at my grandparents' house. But I didn't really know that everybody didn't live like that. I just thought that was normal.
Right.
And I remember when we moved back from Spain, we moved to Spain for quite a while when I was younger. And when we moved back from Spain, I remember some kid, like I was like 11, saying, "Oh, you think you're so great because you're Robert Mitchum's granddaughter." And I remember thinking, how does he know my grandfather? And why would that make me think I'm so great? It was really perplexing to me.
Uh-huh.
And I actually don't think, I'd seen my dad. I remember being really little and seeing my dad on Johnny Carson. What is it? Is that the Tonight Show?
Yes.
I always call it the Johnny Carson Show.
We all did.
Yeah, right. And I remember seeing my dad on that. But again, I didn't think that wasn't how everybody lived. And so I think that like 11, 12 was sort of when I started realizing that wasn't how everybody's life was.
And for the folks who don't know, your dad, Christopher, right? Your dad was Christopher Mitchum, who also had his own acting career. But and before we even move on with the next thing I wanted to bring up, Harold Lloyd, like she had mentioned, who was on her mom's side, for those of you who don't know, was a very famous silent film actor, comedian, but he was more of a stunt man. He was that guy that you saw hanging off the clock in downtown Los Angeles. And falling from one thing to another. Him and I guess Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, they all fit into that mold of doing crazy stunts, dangerous stunts. But Harold Lloyd was the king of them. Okay. So
Well,
that's
and also the cool thing about Unky is he realized really early on that like he and Hal Roach pretty much formed the studio system. They were the first people to actually have a studio. And he was in production and he invented the trailer that we all see today. He's the first person that did movie trailers. So he was really sort of much more innovative than an actor. He was also very into magic and was a member of the Magic Castle and the Secret Seven. And he died when I was like 4 or 5, but we spent a lot of time at his house. We lived there for a while. And I remember I was running up and down the halls. It's this huge 48-room replica of the Via Medici in Beverly Hills that they built in the 1920s. And I was running up and down the halls, and he would stop me and do a magic trick, and I would scream, but not because of the magic trick, but because he was missing so many fingers on his hands from blowing them up, doing stunts.
Oh my gosh.
Like, and run away.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Okay, here's the next question. Knowing other children or grandchildren of famous actors, I'm going to ask you, because like you said, you thought you didn't think that the way you were growing up was anything special compared to the average kid. But was it because the average kid was also a child or a grandchild of someone famous that you grew up with?
Well, probably in the beginning in nursery school. And my first, I went to nursery school, kindergarten, and first grade in Los Angeles. And definitely went with a lot of industry kids. Pretty much everyone, I think's parents were somehow in the movie industry, whether they were entertainment lawyers or studio heads or whatever. And then when we moved to Spain, I went to like a different school every year. And I was only in school about a quarter or a third of the school year because we were traveling so much. And so I had, sometimes I had a tutor, sometimes my mom taught us, sometimes we were just like, eh.
Fun.
So we were usually in some rice paddies somewhere in Indonesia.
Why were you guys traveling so much?
Because my dad is like 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyed, but he's an 8th Dan in karate, kung fu. And so after we left the States, he did a bunch of films with John Wayne and some other films here. But after we left the States, he was primarily doing action films in Asia in the 70s and early 80s.
Wow. And this is Christopher Mitchum, your dad. Wow. Oh, okay.
So we just went with him.
So now Carrie becomes a grown woman. She's out of Bold and Beautiful. She's done a couple of other movies.
Yes.
And then she decided, at least when I met Carrie, at that point, she decided she wants to be a chef.
Yes. Yes.
And I have had some Carrie's meals, and I am very happy to say she is a wonderful chef.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear she's not just a chef. She's an entrepreneurial chef, and you've done some nonprofit work. Is that right? Can you tell us like how the process of how you ended up, why would you want to be a chef to start with? I guess eating food.
Yeah, right. I love to eat. Like and food. After being an actress, I was so happy to get off a diet.
Yeah.
But really, food, as we just discussed, my childhood was very unanchored and very chaotic. And one of the things that always brought people together, regardless of what country we were in and regardless of what language they were speaking, was meal times. And I like some of my fondest memories of being like 6, 7 years old, it literally in rice paddies was having people share their, fish with me that they caught in the rice paddy and wrapped in banana leaves and cooked in a fire, and just, I always felt so welcome around tables or in circles on the floor, depending on where we were eating. And I think that was like, they say the hearth is the home, but like the hearth is kind of in my heart too. It sort of was a very natural thing for me, because to me, that was a place where I was always welcome. Nobody ever said, "Oh, you think you're so great because you eat,"
Right.
And it was just a really cool, welcome environment. And I loved being in different countries and having these old women, have me stir a pot or peel a potato or doing the little kid things that you do to help and think you're important. And so it really, when I sat down with myself and I said, "Okay, self, you've got a few years left. What are you going to do with them?" I decided I really wanted to do something that I 100% loved. And I had like such a horrible experience in Denmark when I went there on a Bold and Beautiful publicity junket, where I was mobbed by like 6,000 people, and it was horrible. And a few people had heart attacks, and there was a lot of, it was horrible. And so that was like, I to this day hate crowds, but that was sort of pivotal in like, I'm really over this whole show business thing. I grew up in it, and so I went into it because I thought everybody did, it was sort of natural, but like I just realized that I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so I had to really sort of do a little soul searching and figure out what I loved doing. And I didn't think I was going to get paid for going to the beach and reading books. So
Darn.
a career as a chef sounded like a good idea. But it's funny because I was doing something. I was working with some movie friend caterers, and then Hurricane Katrina hit, and we overnight went from catering a film to catering a disaster. And it was a camp with 2,000 people, majority of which were men, and we were feeding them 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, like sleeping. And there was only 15 of us, and so we were sleeping in like shifts of 3 hours. But it was then that I realized, A, I like doing relief work, but B, how important method would be, because we never knew what was coming off the truck that we were going to be cooking.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what prompted me to go to culinary school and really sort of start taking it seriously. Like I always like have people over and cook for everybody, but that's what made me sort of realize that method and learning about various cuts of meat or whatever were really important, because you never know when you're going to be thrown something and asked to cook it, and it helps if you know how.
Yeah. Wow. And so you were in Louisiana, right? Hurricane Katrina was in Louisiana?
It was, but it was kind of crazy because we ended up doing Katrina, Rita, Wilma sort of back to back, because they all sort of hit in the Gulf area at the same time. So we were in Beaumont, Texas, in the parking lot of the university there for quite a while. Well, I had a tent at first, and then I had this broken down trailer, and then I had the back of a car trailer, where they transport cars, but it had no windows or ventilation. So that was really uncomfortable sleeping. It was kind of crazy.
You're a trooper. I don't know if I could have done that. I'm like, where's the
I
hotel?
was worse though. 3 years later, a team of us went down and did Ike, which was like at least at during Katrina, we had enough water because the government was bringing in water, a huge thing of gas and ice. At Ike, at first, we didn't have enough resources, so that was really hard, but it's
Wow.
really fun.
Wow. So were you there when the tornado hit?
Well, for
you
Ike,
went-
we drove into Ike because we got the call beforehand, and it was kind of crazy because we were driving into the Houston area as this line of traffic, just hundreds of miles long, was trying to leave, and we were like driving in, no problem. And we rode out the hurricane at a bunker at the Air Force Base.
Wow.
It was kind of cool. President Bush came down. We fed him.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's brave. Very brave.
It was
Jeez.
fun.
So what's next on your agenda? Where are you going? So now, since I've known you, you've lived in LA, you've lived in Florida, and now
Tennessee.
oh yeah, there was a short period in Tennessee too.
4 years.
And now you're in New York City.
In Manhattan.
Fun. I love Manhattan. I lived there for a year. So what brought you to Manhattan?
You know, I've been a private chef for a while, and I wanted to be someplace. I went to boarding school, so just going back quickly, at a certain point, my parents decided that I probably needed a little stability in my life. And so I ended up in boarding school on the East Coast. And I also went to Dartmouth, which is in New Hampshire. So most of my friends are in the Northeast. They are either here or New England. Like most of them, I'd say 85% of my friends are here. And so I wanted to be kind of by my tribe. I was tired of being so nomadic. And I just, I applied for this private chef job up here, and I did a Zoom interview, and they actually held the job for me for 3 weeks, which was really nice while I sort of got out of Florida. But it's great. I mean, I literally see my friends every week.
Awesome.
And
in New York, the energy there is just unlike anywhere else. I mean, it's so infectious. I love New York.
I love New York so much. I go down into the subways and go, oh,
Well, I don't love it that much.
Yeah, that's not the place I would take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I do though, because I love this city that much.
Yeah. But and the subway is a part of New York City, because how else do you get around? When I was there, I used to babysit this guy's child, and he would give me his car to use for the day to take the child to lunch or whatever. And so I drove in New York City, which is an experience itself. And it was a Mercedes. It was a very nice big car. And I just learned to be very aggressive. I just learned step on that gas, squeeze in that little, there's an inch left on each side, but you squeeze in, and that was exciting. But I would prefer to take cabs and the subway. Cars.
I'm like definitely the car like order queen. You know, I do have a car here, and it's collecting parking tickets and dust.
Yeah, because just driving is not feasible there. I mean, it's just not. But it's okay because you've got all the public transportation, so you don't need to drive, and you could be more productive if you're on the subway, read a book, or in a cab,
and
whatever.
it's so fast, and you don't have to find parking, and you don't have to have all the anxiety of cutting people off and having them cut you off, and
I loved that part of it. I really fell in love with New York on Broadway. My friend and I went to visit her, and then we went to see a play on Broadway, and I wasn't an actor at all then. I wasn't into acting or anything, but I don't know what happened. That energy, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to come here. I have to stay here. The creative energy or whatever it was that got to me, but it was Broadway, being on Broadway, walking down the street, and
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the best part of New York.
Yeah. It's awesome. Okay. So I'm reading more about your philanthropy and your health initiative with food.
Yes. So, well, actually, there's a couple things that I've done with food. But right now, I really believe food is medicine, and I'm pretty distressed over the declining quality of our food because we don't take care of our soil, we don't take care of our air, our water, and the quality of food is declining, and therefore its medicinal properties are also fading. So, sustainable farming where they rotate not only livestock but crops is so integral to that whole system, and it's so small of a percentage of what we do in this country. It's a little overwhelming. So I haven't been focusing as much on that as I have been focusing on, well, where can I move? I was really focused on it a few years ago. And then when COVID hit and I stopped working at the university level and just doing private chef work, I really started realizing, well, what can I do? I can support my local farmers markets, but then I start reading about how, well, the runoff from, farmer over there using all the glyphosate or whatever is running into that organic field. So that food isn't really that good either. Yep. And then you start thinking, well, I better start growing my own hydroponically in a sealed room with filtered water. And then you drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, because that's a job in itself. Yeah. I'm a soda drinker. I know you say that, but I am a soda drinker. I'm addicted. And I think, why are they selling this stuff? It's not even food. Like there's a lot of things in the grocery store that aren't even food.
Yeah.
Why are they allowed to sell it? All the candy and
they put it right there where kids can reach it. Have you noticed that they put
right at when you're checking out,
right where kids can get it? And it's
like, yep. We're doing so many things wrong. It really, really bothers me that, and I could make the choice not to have soda, but I kind of got addicted to it. I got addicted to sugar as a kid. My grandparents owned a candy store.
Oh my gosh.
I went there every Sunday and I came home with a big bag of candy. That penny candy, little pieces, all kinds of, like, just this big bag of candy to last me for the week, make sure she doesn't run out. And I got addicted as a kid. I've been addicted my whole life to sugar.
Well, and I think sugar for a long time, especially like our generation and whatnot, our grandmothers used it as love. Food isn't just medicine, it's love.
And that's a reward.
You would cook people, you bake them a pie if someone died, or if they were sad, or if they were coming over, it was a special occasion, we rewarded each other with sugar. So that's a really hard habit to get out of.
Yes, very, very. Lifelong addict here. I know that. And of course the sugar industry has their lobbyists, and there was a time when it was, a big controversy, but they won, they won out, and they put sugar. And I had a cookie company briefly called Grandma Gillie's Gourmet Goodies. And I put, people loved them because they were full of sugar, sweet,
and
syrup,
fat, butter.
Just so, yeah. And I held back on nothing. I used to sell to the big cookie trays to the TV shows at Warner Brothers.
Nice.
I think it was Warner Brothers, ER, and Everybody Loves Raymond, and Ellen, and I was doing really well. And people, like, the actors would see me coming and they'd be like, here's the cookie lady. And, they all had their favorite cookies and everything. And then I wanted to do it. I really wanted to go big, but of course I didn't have the seed money to do it. But, I almost, in the back of my mind, was feeling a little guilty. There was a guilt to it. Like, is this the right thing to do to get people addicted to sugar? Because I knew that I was addicted to sugar, and it's not good for you. It makes you fat and it makes you unhealthy. I mean, it's just not good for you in any way. It ruins your looks and your health.
And the alternatives aren't great either. Like all of these sugar substitutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The aspartame. Oh my God. I don't want to get sued for beating up on any of them, but anyway.
I know, right? Yeah. Exactly. That's why I'm not mentioning things, but they can cause strokes. They can cause a whole myriad of problems. So
pretty much everything we eat is not really good for you. We've just gotten so away from healthy eating. So yeah, that's definitely something that as in this country, we should all really demand better options in the grocery store. And we have to make better choices too.
But it's such a hard battle because we've gotten used to, I mean, like I look at social media and everyone is complaining about the price of food because everyone wants cheap, fast, easy food.
Yeah, but
And
that's
that
your
means
health. That's
factory
your life.
farm. I know.
Yeah.
And you know, that's like what all the health advocates always say. You can either pay now or pay later, pay for healthy food now or pay for doctors later.
Yeah.
And until it's later and that's their reality, people aren't going to realize that for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm facing that. I'm realizing as I age that my diet has not been good and I'm facing health issues, you know, and I blame food. I really do think just the soda. Every time I open a can of soda and I'm like, why? This is garbage. There's not one thing that I'm getting out of this. But when I eat my meal, I want to rinse it down.
I don't drink, so I stopped years ago. But with soda, isn't the caffeine in the soda what sort of is
But not all soda has caffeine.
That's true. That's true. But I'm assuming that what you're
Mine,
drinking,
it has caffeine, the ones I like. Well, I think it's the sugar.
Yeah.
is it?
I think it's the sugar, but maybe it's the caffeine because there are other sugar drink. I try to get away from it and I'll try to drink sugary juice drinks and they don't do the same thing.
Maybe
So maybe it is the caffeine that I'm addicted to.
You could have like some bubbly water with a little splash of juice or some like essential oil lemon in it, and then you could put a shot of caffeine.
Caffeine myself up, but the bottom line is I should just not have it. I mean, I should have something. I drink a lot of tea too, iced tea, just plain, so I give myself credit for that. I'm like, okay, well, I'm rinsing all the bad stuff out with the iced tea and the water.
You have one each,
yeah, you justify it any way you can. So that's how I do. But another thing that I saw in your I'm looking at your bio right now is you did a co-executive produced a documentary, Profit Over People, about the healthcare system.
Yes. And actually our first episode, which is sort of like a long version of a trailer because it's got little snippets of several episodes, aired today on local CBS stations this morning at 11. And then we're going to be uploading it all to a YouTube channel. It started out because my production partner has a disease called NASH, which is a non-alcohol related liver disease. It's genetic, and she is in stage 4 cirrhosis right now. She doesn't expect to live another year, but one of the biggest challenges she faced was getting the proper medical care. And that includes her insurance. I mean, she has insurance through her husband's work. And even with insurance, it was the co-pays, the this, the that, the waiting for approval.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the waiting for approval part got to the point where she isn't eligible for a transplant at this point because her other organs have suffered such damage. Yeah, the loss of use. So we started talking about it. And we started talking about how this country, and I'll send you guys the trailer and the pilot, but we started talking about how the medical system in this country, we spend more per person than most countries. We have the least services for that money.
Yeah.
We are all, we have a lower life expectancy than the other countries that are in our financial situation.
Yep.
We don't have access to healthcare. And so we started tackling a bunch of different things. We tackled Robin's disease. We tackled mental health because there's a huge lack of mental health resources. And unfortunately, most of those people, the predominantly young men, end up in prison because it's a prison for profit system, but there's no money in curing them of their mental health issues. So we put them in jail, which is the worst possible place to put someone with mental health issues. We tackled the opioid crisis. I lost a niece to fentanyl. And so we discussed that and how that is not being aggressively enough addressed. We talk about, autism. We tackle a whole bunch of different medical situations in the United States. We have people on as guests that are going through it, whether they've received help or not. We have advocates on, we have scientists on, we have doctors on, and we try to offer solutions. We have some solution after show stuff that we follow up with. But honestly, the biggest solution to pretty much every problem is medical care starting at an early age. And that is pretty much like so many of our issues, including a lot of the addiction issues, including diabetes, including the fact that we address the fact that there's shortages of so many medications because people use them recreationally and the people that need them can't get them. So we address all that, but like, and our whole goal was to bring this in front of Congress and get solutions going. And we just kept coming back to the same solution, which is we need everyone to have access to medical care, and it needs to be affordable, if not free. And we need to have screening and testing at early ages. And we need to readjust
preventative health care, better healthy living, better food, and preventative
and
action.
It needs to start, in public school cafeterias. They need better food, It's like, wow, it's amazing how many, if not most, of the issues that we face in this country are due to poor food, poor diet, poor access to healthcare.
Yep.
And
so I am going to share something that I'm really nervous about. So Tuesday, I'm going to get my first colonoscopy, and finally broke down. I'm going to do it. So the price, I looked online. I'm like, I have really good health insurance, but I have a big deductible, but I'll use my HSA money and everything. And I'm looking online to see the price of a colonoscopy, and they're like $1,000 to $2,000. Well, because I'm in a rural community, mine is going to be $8,000 to $9,000. And so like, how fair is that? How right is that? And it's because we're in a rural area and it costs, we don't have enough people to support the hospital. And so I never understand why people are so against universal health care when they're spending so much money on health care for the same thing that you would. So, I mean, it does not add up to me or make sense. And I think it's just a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding. So I had to get a CAT scan Thursday. And so the insurance company calls me and tells me, well, if you get it at the hospital, it's going to be like $5,000 or $6,000. And if you go to this other, whatever, freestanding medical clinic, which is a very nice place and, just as good, it's going to be $800 to $900.
Exactly.
So the insurance company was going to have to pay for it one way or the other. But in my logical, frugal mind, I'm like, well, I'm going to go to the other place because it's just a waste. Like, why are you going to spend all that money when it's not necessary? I mean, and the prices are so drastically different. And so then I go to this other freestanding clinic and get the CAT scan. And then they're like, oh yeah. So I pay for it was like $840. And then they're like, oh yeah. And there's going to be an additional cost of the radiation, whatever, the reading of the results. And I'm like, they just throw it at you, and don't tell you ahead of time what you need and how much. And it's so wrong to me. It just frustrates the heck out of me.
It's egregious. And I have a friend, he has since passed away, but he had lung cancer. He lived in France, Paris. And the lung cancer unfortunately traveled to his brain, and he passed away in 2020. However, prior to that, He was in a beautiful clinic with his own room. It wasn't like a hospital. It was like a clinic where terminal people can go. They paid his salary, because he was off of work. The government paid his salary. He did not have a single medical bill.
Where was this?
Paris, France.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
there are people, they demand more of their government. They demand more of their standard of living. And I think in the US, we've just settled so much and gotten used to it.
we've
And-
also got the lobbyists here
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
so powerful.
Well, and the people, the voters aren't informed.
It seems that in Europe, the European governments realize they would not exist without the people. In America,
They don't care. Let a couple 100,000 of them die. We got more.
philosophy there, but yeah, I definitely in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, they certainly care more for the residents and the citizens of their countries.
But it's because the citizens demand it. And here we're fighting against better health care. We're
Well,
fighting against
propaganda
it.
has told the public that if we have universal health care, then all the illegal immigrants are going to use it all up.
Well,
that's one thing. And then they say there won't be enough doctors. And there's ways you would have to implement it, but we would have to offer incentives for more people to go to college to become a doctor, help them.
nothing wrong with that.
Because it's for us, and people act like it's not, like it's some luxury item that some people just want to have health care.
Right.
It was just last week, one of the schools here on the East Coast, the Einstein School of Medicine.
Yep.
They just gave
$1 billion.
I saw that. Yeah.
free, and this is a medical school, so doctors and nurse practitioners and nurses will all come out of this.
Yeah.
Well, then the other thing is they say you have to wait too long. You always have to wait. Well, with all the health insurance, you have to wait for an approval. You've got and if you get denied, you might have to wait up to 3 months, 4 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
So fight it.
Yeah.
And by that time, if you got cancer eating at you inside,
Right.
it's just growing. It's
Right.
crazy. It's just insane, the lack of information and misinformation that people have. And of course, like you said, Carrie, it's the lobbyists that are doing that.
And the lack of mental health care. Like I said, during this research for this, it's like, well, most of these people end up in jail or prison. And when you have a for-profit prison system, there's no incentive to get them better when you can send them to jail.
That's right. It's funny. I was just watching another documentary today that for the size of the United States, we have more people in prisons than any other percentage to our population. And the reason is, it's just like you said, it is a for-profit business, unfortunately. But let's not get into that.
Yeah, right.
But it's something everybody knows and everybody's aware of. I mean, we could talk about the homelessness too. It's like we're all aware of it. We all know something needs to be done about it.
Carrie Mitchum. What's in the future for Carrie Mitchum?
Future. No. It's funny because I really love what I'm doing right now, and I'll do it as long as I love doing it. We're going to do another season of the documentary. We're going to address things outside of just the medical thing, that where profit over people is significant. And I think our next season is going to be predominantly agriculture, factory farming, etc. I'm also my partner's in palliative care right now. She's considering assisted suicide, and so I think we're going to do a documentary on this whole situation. I really love making documentary films and shows. It's sort of like my little niche now. It's far enough away from entertainment, but I definitely believe education is really important. I've also sort of gotten a lot more in touch with, I don't know, grounded myself in the past few years. So I just really, as far as what's next, want to follow my heart. And I don't know what that looks like right now. Right now I am. So I'm in the middle of it. But if that changes, I'll do something else. I think probably 3 years here, maybe 3 to 5. Then I definitely want to go back to California for a little bit. My mom is still teaching. She's a professor and she's still going strong, but I think, I'd like to spend, when she retires, I'd like to spend that time with her, and she's not leaving California. I have a 4 and 5-year-old nephew out there, and she is not leaving those children.
Yeah.
When you make that change, we'll definitely be interviewing again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, hear what you're up to next. Yeah.
It's anything can happen. I was offered a part in a movie that I tell you, I was like, oh God, you want me to do this favor? You want me to do this? All right, I'll do it as a favor, which is not most people's reaction to a part in a film. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like, oh, if it weren't a good friend that asked me, I wouldn't do it. But now I kind of feel like I'm in the crosshairs because I was like, oh, I was so supportive when I read the script. And then they said, well, would you like to do it? And I was like, oh, sure. So I'll probably end up doing that. But anything I do at this point in my life has to be on terms that are acceptable to me. I am not willing to go into a toxic work environment. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. So I just want to focus on things that are beyond myself. I want to be part of a greater good. And I want to do things that are in my comfort zone. And that changes. That changes constantly, I'm absolutely fearless about life in general because I don't fear dying. So whatever comes my way, if I want to do it, I'll do it. And if I don't, I'll just pass.
Yeah, that's a great place to be. I think we're all different, but I kind of I've always had that mentality too. I've never really had a plan, and I've just kind of gone along with whatever, and things that were far greater than I would have imagined have happened to me and come to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I never would have thought of this. So even if I had plans, I think they would have been far more limiting than my life has been.
They would.
So yeah, I'm with you,
100%. If you're like, this is your road and you're like, I'm staying in my lane and I'm not moving and I'm going to get to that destination. It's like, whereas if you're open to it, it's limitless. Yeah. So, and things come to you, they'll come your way.
Yeah. And I think for some people that kind of security and stability works and that's what they want. And then some other people like us just,
I wasn't raised that way. I had, I was in 18 schools before boarding school in, however many countries. And so I just wasn't raised that way.
You got used to the, flexibility and change. And for me, I've lived in all these different places, and I have a friend that's recently moving from a place she's lived her whole adult life. And she's they're a little bit nervous about it, like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, it's like a whole new lifetime. Every time you move to a new state, it's like a new country because the United States is so big and different and diverse. And I'm like, it's just like a whole new lifetime. And you're living more lives in one lifetime than you would normally live if you just stayed in the same place your entire life. I would hate that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so. Well, Carrie, you are a delight, and I got to meet my bold and the beautiful actress, so that was fun. And then hearing all about all the other stuff that you're doing, which is even bigger. You're an awesome person. I think you're very grounded and awesome. And it was a pleasure to talk with you and spend a little bit of time with you today. So thank you.
It was great.
That's why I asked her to be here today. She's a wonderful person. So thanks for being here, Carrie. We love you for it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Yeah. Jon, everyone knows Jon knows is wonderful and special. So I didn't expect anything less, but it was a pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care and good luck. Keep in touch. Let us know what you're up to.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll send you that trailer and pilot just so you can sort of see what it's about.
Yes.
Okay, I would love that.
Thank you.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.